So normally I don't make these types of videos because when I watch a movie, I get influenced by things that normal people don't. And it's due to the nature of the work that I do on my channel that I get to see some things that maybe don't bother other people or they don't notice, but it bothers me a lot. For example, if you watch the remake of The Beauty of the Beast, that takes place in medieval France. And in the beginning, you see noblemen dancing, which is all fine and good, but it's like black noble women dancing with white men. And this is happening in France in the medieval time period. Never ever, like, like, and for me this is really it's bothering me because I know it's just an agenda that's being stuffed down there. Like, it's not that it happened, that it's an accident. I know is that the person who made the film made a conscientious decision in order to put that there because of his political leanings. And this is not art or entertainment for me, it's propaganda. And, like, there's these types of things that I constantly notice and I get really angry about, and it ruins the enjoyment of my movie. To be honest, even the fact that I did med school, it kind of bothers me that whenever you see someone getting shot in the belly, they immediately die. Or you see like the SWAT team coming up with all these armor and, tactical gear, and they get shot by a handgun and they die instantly. So it's like these things that, for me, it causes a disconnect, and I understand for other people it doesn't, which in a way is kind of fine. I guess it's like watching a World War I movie where, for the average person, they find it enjoyable, but the person who knows a lot about history and loves watching weapons and replicas, they might look at it and they get really angry because they know it's like that weapon wasn't in World War I, right? So that's why I don't really make movie reviews that much. That's why I don't do it, because I know I'm a completely different audience than the average Joe that goes to the cinema. With that said, let's talk a little bit about Avengers Endgame, and I'll tell you why this movie really annoyed me to an extent. So there's obviously going to be a lot of spoilers. If you don't want to see the spoilers, now's the time to tune out. In fact, I think there are some people that really like to be upset and offended. It's like, why would you click on a movie that talks about Endgame if you haven't seen it yet? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Just so I can hear those people in the comment section going, yeah, you spoiled it, yeah, the fuck off. But anyway, right, so, the movie wasn't bad. It was kind of okay, which, to me, is really disappointing, because it's not okay because the movie is good. It's okay because everything else is shit. Like, if you compare it with some old movies that I grew up with, oh my god. Like, it doesn't even compete in the same level. When I grew up with, they were making movies for the stories. And then they started making movies for the special effects. And then they started making movies for the nostalgia. And now they're making movies to guilt trip you into watching. It's like, if you want to support feminism, go watch Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. If you don't watch Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, the sexists win. Which I'm pretty sure this is going to be like the new trend in advertising for the future Marvel films. After seeing this one, I really understand that this is probably going to be like the last good movie that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is making. So what am I banking this on? Well, I'm looking at the way they're treating the men in the movie. Let's look at two of the most powerful men in the Marvel Universe. You got Thor, which is arguably one of the strongest superheroes, like, if not the strongest. And then you have Hulk, which is also another really strong superhero, probably the top two. And I even see IGN pointing it out and complaining about the way they treated Hulk. They made him into, the Professor Hulk is what the internet call him. And, they got rid of all that toxic masculinity, which made the Hulk interesting, and I guess this is their way of subverting your expectations. And they made Hulk into this intellectual, I wouldn't even call him a brute anymore, right? And I'm looking at it, and it would have been cool if when shit went down and, the battle would have happened, like, he would have just ripped off his shirt and showed that, he's the best of both worlds and he's still hyper violent and all that, and he's smart on top of it. That would have been really great. But no, when shit's about to hit the fan, he just becomes this comedy relief character where he picks up a bike and goes like, just to show that he's still got it. And to me, that was really disrespectful to the original character. The character is completely ruined now. Would have been really great if they would have made another character like that, or like a Hulk from a different timeline or a different dimension. That would have been great. But what this shows is that the Hulk you know and love, the previous Hulk, is gone. Like you're not going to see him again on the screen. The previous Hulk, if you really like that, if you enjoyed watching the previous super, he's no more. All right. So that's one of the things that happens in comic books as well with superheroes. Why a lot of people are tuning out is because you have a lot of fans of a superhero, and then either they kill it off and he passes on the mantle, or they completely change it around, and the new superhero that you get is nothing like the previous one. He's still the Hulk, I guess, but he's not, not what made the Hulk cool to begin with. The second one was Thor, and what they did to Thor is absolutely abysmal, is absolutely disgusting. Because the essence of Thor, like what defined him as a character, was the fact that he was a warrior. He liked drinking mead and he liked fighting. And he also liked fighting on the side of justice. Now, he had a lot of flaws. He was really gullible. He wasn't the smartest of the bunch. Like, he wasn't as smart as Tony Stark or other superheroes, but he had a lot of heart. Like his heart was always in the right place. And now they turned him into the opposite. Like, he's got a beer belly. He, I guess, threatens kids on Xbox. That's the thing that he does in this movie. And he's not courageous anymore. Like, he basically lost his will to fight. And I guess it makes sense within the story and whatnot. But again, like, this is not Thor. This is not the character that I like. Like, people like Thor because it's Thor. And, don't get me wrong. Like, it's fine for characters to have like this growth, this arc. And sometimes characters get to be at their low. But then they pick themselves up. And by the end of the story, I didn't feel that Thor is going to ever become what he used to be. And I think you see this from the episode Thor Ragnarok, the movie, that he is starting to become a comedy relief character. Like, Thor Ragnarok is a movie that I really hated because it deals with the destruction of Asgard. It deals with the destruction of Thor's home planet. And the way it was portrayed, it was, just like a comedy, like a funny thing, like hee hee ha ha. It's like your entire world is being destroyed. And you're like fine with it, and it's like a comedy, what? And the only place that Thor had in this movie was to make Brie Larson look cool. That was literally, like, Brie Larson is the new Thor. Like, when she goes in, right, she doesn't talk, she just gets into battle and she kicks ass. That's what Thor used to do. And they can't have someone take away from the shining beacon that is Captain Marvel. They can't have someone steal her thunder. So they have to destroy what used to exist. They have to destroy Thor in order to hype her up. So when Thor fights Thanos, even without the Infinity Gauntlet, Thor gets his ass kicked. And then Brie Larson goes in there and Thanos punches her and she doesn't look phased, so Thanos just has to take like the Power Stone and then punch her in order to show that, it takes an unbelievable amount of strength just to get her to flinch. And, like, this is why I think it's the death of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it, because the only male characters that were cool are either being killed off or they're being changed into something new. So, for example, Tony Stark, I really, really loved him in this movie. Right? I think he was one of the best male characters that was ever created in recent years, because you don't really get to see the role model of a male character on the screen. Like, Tony Stark is a very successful man. He's in a stable relationship with a wife, so he's married. And on top of that, he has a daughter which he loves very, very much. And this actually pissed off a lot of journalists. And I remember reading on one of these publications for Geekdom, I even forgot what the name was, that the journalist was livid that superheroes are having daughters and they love them because, that's not the subversive ideal. That's not how you're supposed to subvert the movies and whatnot. But all in all, no, like Tony Stark, wow, like I was looking at it, it's like finally, a role model for how a successful man should be. Like, this is positive masculinity, if you will. Not the bullshit that's being sold on other TV shows or other movies where, like the emphasis on the beta orbiter and the yes ma'am type of guy. No, like this was legitimately, a positive model for young kids to look at a movie and go like, wow, holy shit, I want to be like that when I grow up. And he gets killed. He gets killed. Like, they get rid of him at the end of the movie. Now, I know probably for reasons that the actor probably, is tired on playing these things, or maybe, I don't know, there was an executive decision. They get rid of him. Captain America, another character, which I would say, yeah, is decent enough as a male model, I suppose. They get rid of him. He becomes old at the end of the movie. You don't know if he's ever going to star in another Marvel cinematic movie again. And he passes the torch to this black guy, which also exists in the comics, and he was like a full raging blown socialist. And that's why people didn't really appreciate the passing of the mantle. So yeah, like, I don't know if other people notice this or they're getting bothered by it, but all in all, like, all the males that are suffering from toxic masculinity are being moved away to make room for the ladies, which are perfect creatures, and they're the ones suffering from toxic masculinity now. Like, Brie Larson is the most toxic masculine character that you're ever going to see. But unlike Thor, I guess, Thor actually had flaws. Like, he falls in love, right? He's quite vulnerable as he falls in love with this human female. He loses the hammer because he's too arrogant, and he needs to work out and get humility in order to pick up the hammer again. Brie Larson has none of those things. And she's definitely like not a role model for anything, because no one can achieve this level of perfection that Brie Larson just has. So there's that. Do let me know what you think. A lot of people will say, well, V, isn't this what Anita Sarkeesian was complaining about, the representation of women on the big screen? And it's like, the difference that I think is that Anita Sarkeesian was looking into things that weren't there, and she was also lying about her criticism. Like, for example, the person who designed the Mario game didn't really care or think about these things, it was just like a game that happened to have a story. But when Hollywood producers are making movies nowadays, they're very conscientious about what they're doing. They're definitely making this with a purpose. They are actually killing Han Solo because a man like Han Solo doesn't have a place on the big screen anymore. They have to retcon him. They have to make him more progressive so that he's just the butt end of the joke for the females in the cast now. But anyway, again, like that's my opinion. Let me know what you think, and I'm really curious about this, because that's why I even started this discussion. It's not my forte, but I want some engagement with the audience to see if I'm the only one who feels like this.